Hi, I'm your host, Kate. Welcome to Mental Health and Creativity Collide, where we explore everyday creatives. Whether you're a CEO, a chef, a death doula, or a professional actor, mental health and creativity are gifts we all have as humans. This podcast explores how our guests find balance between mental health and creativity. It is a celebration of their stories and an invitation for us to share our own. Here we go. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hello there.
So for everybody watching or listening, I have an amazing group of friends that meet weekly to play Dungeons and Dragons or D&D, and I'm really excited to talk. Yeah, woo woo! Really excited to introduce all of them and talk to them. But as always, I'm just going to start with a really brief meditation, mostly just to ground me. But if you're listening at home or you want to participate in the chat, feel free. And you can also shut your video off or whatever you need to do to enjoy right now. But just starting in a nice cozy state, and then inhaling to find a really tall spine, and then exhaling to just soften and let the body relax. Oh, can everybody else hear the high pitch? Oh, well,
Yeah.
sorry about that, folks. If you're listening, I'm not sure what that was, but we'll go ahead and go into the meditation anyway. So, starting to focus on your breath, and just taking the attention to your chest. And seeing if you can slowly inhale and just feel the chest rise. And then for about the same amount of time, exhale, let the chest fall. And see if you can find a pace that feels slow enough to be luxurious, but not so slow that it feels hard to breathe. And you can just stay right here, or if you feel like adding on, you can add the ribs. So the next time you breathe in, the chest lifts, but so do the sides of the ribs, the front and back of the ribs. And then exhaling for about the same length of time. And just doing that for a few rounds at your own pace. Everybody will be different, which is great. And you can stay right there, or you can add the belly. This is the last element. So next time you breathe in, just letting the belly be soft and expand. So the breath is really deep and slow. And then as you exhale, you're letting that go. Going at your pace. See if you can soften in the space between the eyes and the shoulders here. And just let the mind focus on the breath. If thoughts pop in, that's normal. That's okay. And then noticing them and going back to the breath. And I'm just going to be quiet for the next 30 seconds or so. And you can just continue this or let it go. Right. I'm going to slowly let that go. If you're one of my guests and you want to keep up with it for a little bit, feel free. You can hop in at any time. I'm just going to start introducing folks. So y'all, I know these amazing human beings because my partner, Benjamin, is one of them. And I get to, I've been able to observe the benefits that I've experienced being his partner, like watching how much joy he gets every week, how being creative each week and seeing the people he loves most in the world each week has affected his happiness and just his ability to be creative. And so I love all of them also, and they are also my friends, except Jason and I are new friends, which I'm excited to get to learn more about him. But if y'all would be open to it, and you can also skip this step if you'd like, I'd love you just to say your name, your character name. And by the way, if you don't know what D&D is, we will be talking about that, and we'll be going into that. If you're in the chat, you don't know. But just for now, if y'all would introduce your name, your character name, and your pronouns, and then share maybe the first memory you have of being creative. So, and it can be anything. It can be whatever pops into your mind. Like, so yeah, anything. And maybe it's just a memory that pops into your mind, and that's okay too. Does anybody feel like going first? I can share one too if we'd like more space to come into that.
I don't mind going first, Kate.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah, and I also just want to say I kind of want you to have a recording of you just leading that meditation so I can get to sleep at night. Like,
Yeah.
Oh,
so nice.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
that made my day. Thank you. Thank you, Andrew. I love
Yeah,
you
of
so much.
course, of course.
Hey.
Yeah, love you too.
Yeah.
Hi everybody. My name's Andrew Sines. You're gonna see me playing this fun tabaxi, which is like a cat humanoid creature. We'll talk more about it a little bit later on. His name is Marvel, and I'm absolutely in love with him and the fellows that we play with. My pronouns are he and him. And my first time being creative was far before like I ever did it like for theater. It was I remember like just playing like imaginary games with like friends, like running around in the neighborhood. And the first thing that I remember is like it's such a dumb game, and the title's dumb, and my wife Iris makes fun of me for like bringing this up, but it was literally called Guns. It was just called Guns, and
Nice.
and
What
it
a
was,
great title.
Yeah, that's a great title.
and it was literally just me and my friends running around, and it started out literally us just kind of going like pew pew, and like just with our fingers. And whenever we thought we got shot, we would fall down, and like we would get up like 5-10 seconds later and like just continue to run around and shoot each other. And then it evolved into having like rubber band guns, and then it started to hurt and be like less creative because we actually had the guns. But that's what I remember the first time, just kind of running around and having fun just with our bodies and our minds.
Oh, that's really beautiful. Thank you.
All makes sense to me now, Andrew. Now I know why you're so good at paintball, dude.
Yeah, that's
Oh,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
I know where it all comes from.
Yes.
Guns.
I'll go next.
Yeah, please.
Hi, my name is Sam Stan. My character is Diamendi. He is a elf, a special kind of elf called an Eladrin, where he is colored with a season, any one of the 4 seasons. I'm sure we'll get more into him later. He is also a lot of fun. And then my earliest creative memory, Andrew, you totally stole mine. I had a very similar thing. It was called Game Game. That's what it was. We'd go outside and we play game, and it was just running around pretend. And to go with your gun thing, when we first got started, we had like, as we introduced our characters and our powers or whatever, it always started with the same line: I have every gun and weapon in the world, plus the made-up ones from Doom and Duke Nukem. That was it. Every
Yes.
single time you started playing. That's exactly what it was.
Is this is like a young boy thing? Is this?
Yeah, oh yeah, 100%. In a tree
played it.
shooting. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when FF7 came out, you had a sword that was bigger than you were. You know, all that
Yeah,
stuff.
Oh,
of
the
course,
best.
of course. Yeah.
What are those things?
So Doom and Duke Nukem are 2
Yeah.
very, very old, like the first person shooter video games, and they had
Oh.
made up guns in them. So when you said I have every gun and weapon in the world, and then I also have the made up ones from the video game that we play as we pretend outside.
What year? Like, were these? This is the. I was homeschooled. I missed this. Is it? So this.
Well,
is
you're playing Doom on
Doom would have
Windows
been released.
95.
Yeah, I
so
think
Okay,
the first
that's
Doom
what-
was like 95. So yeah, 5-6
somewhere
years
around
old.
then, maybe
Yeah.
96.
Yeah, it was when like
98.
personal computers were first getting
Yeah.
popular.
Yeah.
Well, and it's interesting that they're sort of like narrative based from an outside perspective, and then moving into the creativity that you've all found that's also narrative based is
Mhm.
kind of. I'd love to talk about that in a little bit, but
We
thank
will.
you. Yeah,
We'll
thank
get
you
there.
for sharing, Sam. Would anybody else like to go, or would like to go next?
Yeah, I'll go next. Yeah.
Great.
My name is Benjamin Lapine. My pronouns are he, him. I am playing the character named Jasper, as you can see right here. I love him. He is a giant turtle. So imagine like a ninja turtle, right? He's just this massive 450 pound, 6 foot tall turtle. Yeah, he's the best. He's a cleric, and he's a big pothead, and he likes. He's just a cleric of peace, so he's all about just good vibes and good times and keeping the party kind of morally straight and true, but also, what they need to do for themselves is always like paramount to him. Like, we'll talk about it later. But anyways, I love him. He's the best.
You're a little carried away there.
Yeah, I'm like, I need to tell you everything.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. Like,
Yeah. My first creative memories. I mean, obviously, I did the same thing you guys did too. Like, I had 2 older brothers, and we used to take sticks, and they were swords, and we just have like battles on. We dropped a tree down in between a creek, and we used to fight on top of this tree and like try to like almost like Robin Hood style,
Yep.
like knock the other person in. But I don't know if that was first or not. But I've always been writing. So as you know, I mean, some of you guys know, like I'm still a writer today. I write plays. I love writing, but I still have this story from when I was in maybe third grade. I wrote a story about a squirrel named Squeaky who wants to go to California to get ice cream at a Friendly's, and it's about the misadventures along the way and the creatures he meets. It's like 3 pages long. It's terrible, but I love it, and it's like it's in my handwriting when I was in third grade too, so it's atrocious. But yeah, I think that's probably one of my earliest memories. I remember in my room like writing it feverishly, like I gotta get this story out. Yeah.
I love that. I would have gone with Squeaky to get Friendlies. That sounds like a good adventure.
Dude, his motley crew is awesome. Yeah.
Thank you.
Because he made friends with a turtle. I forgot. Full circle.
Oh
There
my
we go.
god, that's
Yeah.
why.
Yeah.
That's why. Christian or Jason, you don't have to go, but if you'd like to.
I'm happy to go.
Cool. Yeah.
Yeah, hello everyone. Christian Payne here. He, him pronouns. I play as a character named Pond, who's a genasi, water genasi. We'll explain that in a little bit. He's essentially half genie, and he's a monk, which means he fights with his fists, so like martial arts type of stuff. And yeah, earliest creative memory, similar, obviously. I think it seems to be a theme, shooting fake guns, but
That's interesting. Yeah.
yeah, me and my neighbors, I don't know, we
Must be
used to call it the
cultural.
forest, but it was just like I think it's just hedges, and we would like crawl in there and we pretended we were squirrels, Ben, and we like made little homes and like had these like little areas. Yeah, I think that's probably as far back as I could go. Yeah.
I love that. That's there's so much overlap. I think that's really interesting, actually, especially y'all are my first set of guests that are more than one. So it's really cool to see the overlap. Jason, what about you? Do you feel like sharing? Or?
Yeah. My name is Jason Matthews. I play, our pronouns he, him. I play a character named Vane, who, if you're familiar with League of Legends, you probably have seen the character. So I made a D&D character kind of like based off of the principles of her character in League of Legends. And she is a elf that has had a ritual conducted on her, so she is now Asmir. Yeah. One of my earliest creative memories that I can think of is, it's guns. Like that was the thing that you did when you were a kid. Like, and I don't know if that's just like a Midwest thing or I never like thought about it, but
I'm from South Texas.
oh man,
I'm from
everywhere.
Massachusetts. Yeah, it's like a classic American childhood thing.
Yeah.
I guess.
One of the viewers actually called it out. It's a classic American cultural thing.
Oh, yeah.
Shooting,
Yeah, right.
shooting guns. You know.
What was our media like? GI Joe into Transformers into I mean that's what our cartoons had.
It's not our fault.
It's not.
It was the propaganda of the time.
Like it changed.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
It is very interesting though. Like, do any of you incorporate like guns into your D&D characters, or was that just a like this is childhood, or like is there any nostalgia in that for you, or was it like that was that time in life, and now?
I gravitate more towards the fantasy side, so I like to
Same.
leave firearms, I think, out of it.
Yeah, but it's interesting that
I
you
would be
bring
the
it
same,
up
but-
because we were actually just discussing this as a party and a group of like, we're Dungeons and Dragons, the realm in which we're operating is a fantasy-based realm. So it's like bows, crossbows, swords, things like that. But there is technology, and we were talking about maybe a piece of new technology is being developed, and Andrew's character Marvel would be the one who would utilize a gun in this world. And so we're actually maybe going to be implementing one soon into our campaign. And like, what does this new piece of technology look like in this world? How do people react to it? And it's another really interesting story arc to explore as a group.
And this like the source material expands. So while that gun might not be something that started out in D&D, it's something that eventually incorporated. The game does expand, and they add more content of what are your options as far as those crossbows and guns. And whatnot.
Andrew, I
Yeah.
think you were going to say something about it too.
Yeah, and this is kind of news for kind of Christian and Jason because the way that we kind of structure this is that Sam, Ben, and I are kind of like rotating DMs in our game, and these are the folks that kind of control the story when we kind of take turns doing it. And so we're privy to this knowledge because we just all need to make sure it's okay that we introduce these kind of weird things like guns to a fantasy setting, but it had nothing to do for me like my character's choice like. Andrew loves guns. Like I want to put a gun into the campaign. It was more based on the personality of the character, which is he's very knowledge driven and like would be the first to be like adopting like cool new tech like that, if you can call tech in like a fantasy setting. And so when that rule came out in a different like set of rules that Sam mentioned, it was like, oh, I think this actually would fit well, and
testing.
I think it would be fun.
So something that I think is really interesting about D&D. So I've played, just for context for the audience, this is a live action role playing game where like there is a component of rolling dice. And you all please tell me if I say something that is not correct. But there is a component to rolling dice to see if you're able to do things within the world. But other than that, it is very much characters that you create. But something that I've observed from the outside, and I'm curious how you all feel about this, is you get to explore elements that you're dealing with in real life or elements that you wouldn't get to explore. For example, like gender, or what is it to have a gun as a character, and like what the moral and physical consequences of that are. Like I feel like oftentimes when I'm hearing people talk about it, it's an exploration of like questions, something in yourself that you want to explore, something that's not a part of you that you want to explore, that encourages empathy. Like those are all things that I've observed from the outside, but am I putting that on it? Like do you all experience stuff like that?
And entirely on purpose and on accident.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting too, because I know when I first started playing D&D, I wanted to play kind of characters that are maybe a little bit closer to myself, or like the almost like try hard, like, oh, I'm a dangerous rogue and I'm gonna steal everything, like it's almost like an archetype. But then you realize like, oh, there are parts of me in that archetype, and then you start to realize like, oh, it's actually a little bit more rounded than that as well, and I'm seeing things in myself that aren't that. And I feel like the more I played, the more comfortable I am. Like, okay, I played me, right? I played those characters that are close to me. Now I want to play the super dumb barbarian that like can't read, right? Right now I want to play a female like bard who's really good at singing and things like that. Like, I think the more I played, the more I've been able to explore other characters, other themes, and other ideas.
And that totally resonates with me because right now I'm on stage 1 of what Ben just described. Like in my history of Dungeons and Dragons, I've been the DM. So like in this opportunity to make a character, I made this guy, and then I don't know, probably a couple months into it, I'm like, I just made myself, and everything that this character's dealing with are my own problems that I was not prepared to address right now. Like just totally caught myself off guard.
Yeah, or even the fact that you're learning piano in real life, and then you took a level in Bard, and now your character's like learning music too.
Oh, that's very cool. Well, and DM, just for everybody listening, if you aren't familiar, it stands for Dungeon Master, right, y'all? Is that it?
Yes.
And it's the person that's leading the adventure. And there's a lot of work involved, which I'd love to talk about too. It's very creative. And it can be very heavy in terms of like writing wise and creating the world for everybody else, which I think is very cool. I do want to delve deeper into this, but I'm curious, like, how long have you guys been playing together?
I think we're on a year now.
Over a
year.
Are we serious?
But we started playing a video game. Yeah. So that doesn't count, right? Technically, it kind of does.
I think it does.
I think it does.
I can't believe
it was a Dungeons and Dragons video
Andrew,
game.
Right?
It started in October of last year.
So we started there was a game where it was a story, so it required us to be playing together. So we had a schedule that we needed to establish.
Yeah.
And then after long, it was a brief content. It's Baldur's Gate 3 if anyone's curious. And then once great music, and then we finished that content, we were like, what do we do now? And then it was like, do we just play Dungeons and Dragons? And in hindsight, that was a better decision to begin with.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Did you, because I'm watching from the outside, right? Who initiated it? Do you remember? Or was it just like organically you guys are playing games online? It's a global pandemic. and somebody says we should play Dungeons and Dragons together.
I remember I had
Yeah.
been playing the beta version of the game, and then I was like, hey, you guys, we can play multiplayer if you want. It's the Dungeons and Dragons rules in a video game.
Mhm.
And then we started doing that. We beat the game, but it was like, it's not completed yet because it's still in beta. So we beat it, and then I think it was Andrew who was like, guys, I would actually like to play D&D if you guys want to. I think you threw out the idea.
I don't remember
first.
correctly, but I mean, maybe.
Yeah.
But I think what it was for me, if that was the idea, was just like I didn't want to let it go because I
Yeah.
really enjoyed this group of guys playing together. We had a lot of fun. Like it was very silly when we were playing the game because we would even try to implement elements of role playing into
Yeah.
it. Like it was like haphazardly. Like sometimes we would commit to it, and then like sometimes we wouldn't. And then I think we were all kind of scratching that itch of like, oh, we kind of want to role play, and maybe this is not the best medium for it. We're still having fun, but this break of us not being able to move forward gives the natural outlet to like, let's try a different game that will give us that, and then we can all keep the party together, so to speak. But actually, Jason was the only one that was not a part of that video game component. He joined after our first adventure as just 4 of us. He joined our second adventure when Sam kind of pulled the group, and we're like, yeah, please, more the merrier.
I remember Ben talking about that because he's like, this really cool guy just joined, and I love his character, and like I have learned about you vicariously, Jason. Well, and something that's kind of neat, I think, too, is for a lot of you met online, right? Is that correct? Like,
I've not met Sam in person. I have not met Jason in person. I am very good friends with both Ben and Christian, and I'm happy to say that Sam and Jason are both my friends now.
Yeah, same for me. I never met Jason in person yet. First time I saw him, his face was when we kind of all hounded him to get a camera.
Yeah.
Sam
delivered to his
actually
house.
delivered a hot camera to my house.
Did you really?
Yeah. We were on camera for at least a couple of weeks with Jason just on mic, and I was like, I have an extra one, and I finally took it over to his house.
Yeah.
That's
And then
really sweet.
I've been lucky enough to meet Sam in person. I've become very close to him. I got to go to a party at his house with you, Kate, actually pre-pandemic, like right before
The
it
last
hit.
thing that happened before the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
It was literally a leap day party. It was February 29th.
Yeah.
Well, and it was
Hey,
amazing
William.
because we'd never met you in person, and I personally had some stigma that I had to break from that. Like, I think that there is a stigma, or at least I wonder if you all experienced this, of like a negativity around Dungeons and Dragons or around gaming in general. Like, I don't think people realize how interpersonal they can be, or how deep relationship can be through those mediums. Do you all experience like stigma coming at you from that, or did you growing up? Or like, for example, like I grew up in a very conservative environment where D&D was like of the devil, which is such a shame because I think I would have been a major Dungeons and Dragons kid. But did any of you experience anything like that, or was it was pretty much open? And
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The PlayStation was either the idiot box or the devil box in my household. And just gaming kind of criticized, and then even then I was a participant in that because it was like, well, at least I'm not doing Dungeons and Dragons was absolutely a stance I take. And then at 27 years old, when I picked up Dungeons and Dragons, I'm like, this is just game with rules. Why have I not been doing this my entire life?
Game
Like,
with rules.
this is why have I not been doing this? D&D became my favorite hobby in my adult life, like that. Like, yeah. But to answer your question, absolutely. Not only did I experience it, I hate to say I participated in it.
No, that's the same, but such a shame, right? Like we would have been,
Could have been doing this for 2 more decades.
I know.
Yeah.
I
What
had
were
a
you saying,
lot
Jason?
of I had a lot of stigma when I was growing up. Like I was in a very rural area in a small town, and like nobody's like, "Oh, why are you playing video games? Go make friends and stuff like that." And like I started playing World of Warcraft online, and I met a group of friends on there.
Oh yeah.
And like 3 years ago, I went to their wedding, but like I've known them for like 15 years. Like you just kind of like meet and play with the same people over and over in new video games. You always like, hey, what are you guys up to? Oh, we're playing this game. Oh yeah, I play that game too. And you end up playing with the same like group of friends in different video games as time goes on.
Yeah, I
That's
know
so-
people who have met and gotten married from their time in World of Warcraft. they played together for years, and then they formed a relationship in game and out of game, and ended up getting married. And it was one of those things like, oh yeah, like this can really bring people together, truly.
There's a lot of vulnerability, I think, that happens when you build story together, and also when you're speaking, right? Like you're on an adventure, but also it's almost like, I think, the modern day version of writing love letters, but maybe I'm romanticizing it a little bit. Does that sound accurate to anybody? Or are you like, no?
I absolutely feel like I built a really good friendship with Andrew, and I've never met him in person. Like a really good friendship with Andrew. We've had some really good moments. Oh, she's dipping there off in here.
Sam's wife just popped in.
Like we've had some really good bonding moments, and like I consider him a really good friend from those sharing those experiences, and I've never met him in person.
Yeah.
Which is a crime, and I need to fix.
It is a crime. Yeah, we'll go camping or something soon, and I want a 4, like, yeah, we're gonna all do it.
We can all show up at Jason's house with another camera.
Perfect.
I think I'm the one that needs the camera now.
Well, it's funny. I want to bring this up just based off of like these moments that we share, these vulnerabilities in role play. What's so lovely about it is that we are in fact being vulnerable. Like being able to play pretend and like not have someone to be like, that's dumb, or like, why did you say that, or shut it down. But for them to then just help build with you to craft a story out of nothing is so much fun. And really those what you choose to speak as your characters is, as we kind of discussed, can be reflections of what you may be dealing with personally yourself. Parts of you that you wish were stronger, right, that you want to explore in like in a pretend setting, and maybe you can translate to a real world, is one way. Like maybe you're just practicing like your just overall communication skills. But these moments that we experience in game are just as valid, I feel, as anything that may be real life that's outside of game. And I want to, like, Ben spoke at my wedding, and thank you so much for speaking and delivering a really great speech. And a lot of it centered around some of our interactions in these games that we've played. We've played more than just this game together, and we've often played like really tight characters, relationship wise. And I see those moments and experience them just as I would, formative moments in like my real life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, even like it's a slightly off topic, but like we go LARPing every year. It's live action role playing, and we tell stories while we do that. We role play with fake weapons, just like we were when we were kids, right? So we're still doing it. And I think you're right, spot on, Andrew, of like those experiences, especially last time, like I died in your arms and we were brothers, and like it was such a beautiful story, and like that was real to me in that moment, very much so. And like I still think about it from time to time, and like like it really happened to us.
100%.
I have 2 follow-up questions. One, Jason, was the first time you met those people at their wedding, or was that you'd met them before? The people that you'd met in World of Warcraft? Sorry, I can't stop thinking about it.
Yeah, that was the first time I met those people was at their wedding.
Amazing. That's amazing.
Wow.
Like there was a group of, I think, 16 of us, and like the grooms had like our wedding, like a table, like he even like gave a shout out. It was like, hey, that table over there, those are my friends from WoW. I play with them every week. And like it was awesome.
That's beautiful. Well, and from an outside perspective, right? Like I'm hearing the stories. Like he'll share your D&D adventures or the LARPing adventures afterwards, and I feel like I'm just listening to his day, but it's obviously very heightened. Like, we battle the giant lobster man, or like or I died in somebody's arms. But it feels very
Boldo.
Boldo,
the lobster man. But yeah, no, it's just really beautiful from an outside perspective, even. But so I have so many questions for all of you, but I am wondering if, like, as a listener, it'd be really helpful to kind of understand more what we're talking about. Would you all be okay giving a little bit more of a like a sort of, this is Dungeons and Dragons, and then I know Sam, you've been kind enough to lead a sample, and all of you have been. All of you have been kind enough. So I think I feel like we've actually given a pretty good like live action role playing game. Everybody has different characters. Some people, my understanding, and again, please tell me if I'm wrong, is like you can choose to have a character voice or not. Like you can choose to
Yep.
get as into
Yeah.
the character playing as you want. And I really appreciate all of you being vulnerable and sharing your characters because I think that's really generous and awesome. But yeah, we're going to go into every week. I do just like a little creative offering from the guests. And I thought it'd be really cool just to get sort of a window into what it looks like for you all to play this game that we're talking about. And then I'd love to follow up with a couple questions about that, if that's okay. Sam, is now good, or would you like a little bit more time?
Oh, now is perfectly fine. I just
Yeah.
I know, Ben, do you want to do the quick
Oh, yeah.
character sheet
I'll
demonstration?
do the
and then-
overview of kind of
Cool.
D&D, what to expect, and I'll share my screen for the
Would it be good-
application we all use.
Would it be good to give a brief, like, just nutshell definition? Or
Yeah.
do we think everybody's kind of deduced what that is?
Give the nutshell, and then also keep in mind, Ben, when you're sharing, some people will be listening to just the audio of this. So if that's something to keep in mind. Cool, thanks. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
So what I
It's
often
okay.
like to refer to Dungeons and Dragons is sort of the collective storytelling where a number of characters that are controlled exclusively by the players of the game, and then everything they interact with, from a store owner to a king to any allies or even their enemies, the weather, and the narration is controlled by the DM or dungeon master. All of which have different abilities and skills, corresponding stats that determine the effectiveness of said skills. And then a lot of that is just controlled by a dice, where a d20 is rolled. And then based on those aforementioned skills, a modifier is applied to basically determine success or failure as you progress through this narrative storytelling, whether it be trying to persuade something in conversation or trying to hit someone over the head with an axe.
And
Good.
everything in between.
And
That is
everything
great.
in between and outside.
Yeah.
That's great. So for the layman listening, that would mean like if I wanted to cross cross a river, and and punch the giant lobster man on the other side, I would have to roll a 20-sided dice to see if that was something I was capable of doing as my character. Is that?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
there might
there
be
would be
steps along the
modifiers
way.
based on, your ability to punch, his armor that he might be wearing, and other factors could be incorporated as well.
Yeah. Is
Cool.
the water like a rushing rapid?
Yeah,
Can you swim? Like, are those things your character can do?
Yeah.
Very layered. Yeah, Benjamin, are you ready to share your screen?
Yeah,
and
yeah,
kind of show-
absolutely. Yeah, so share screen.
Thank you.
Screen number 2, Jasper. Bam. Okay, let me know if everybody can see. Yes? Oh, I can
Ooh,
see.
yeah.
Awesome. So this is D&D Beyond. So this is an application that we all use at the same time. And this is basically in lieu of what we would normally be doing, is in person around a table rolling real dice. 20-sided dice is what Sam says, a d20, but we use a 4-sided dice, a 6, an 8, a 10, a 12, and a 20. They all do different things for different reasons, right? So this is D&D Beyond. It's a fantastic app. It basically takes all the information you could know and puts it in one place. So you can click on things to do what you need to do, and it'll automatically roll dice for what you need. So this is Jasper's character sheet, right? But the great thing about this is, I know there's a lot to take in on this sheet, so we're not going to really dive into all of it because it's all really not relevant for you right now, I don't think. But the part of like why I really like this app is right here is the game log up on the top side. And the game log allows us to see one another's roles. So
Can you zoom into that a little, Benjamin? Sorry.
yeah.
It might just be my screen, but thank you.
So the game log. So basically, over on the left side, you have all your different sided dice, right? But let's say I'm going to roll an attack roll. And so I want to roll my mace to hit, which I'll have like modifiers. It's going to roll a d20 and add +6 to it to hit a creature. And you'll see it kind of drops on the screen. I rolled a 5, +6 is an 11. So maybe I do or do not hit the creature. But the great thing is everybody can see what I rolled on the screen. So you can see right there on the bottom. So we can kind of keep track of what everybody's doing. So while we're using this as the players, the dungeon master is using their own. So we never see what the dungeon master is rolling. Everything is kind of, quote, behind the screen. It's almost like in the Yellow Brick Road, right? He like the wizard is behind the curtain, right? And we never really get to see what's behind the curtain as the game is happening. But yeah, this is the character sheet. This is the app we play on. Are there any questions or anything that I perhaps didn't highlight that you guys think would be important?
I think I know if I was myself listening, just to clear, like, so this is basically like, maybe this is too simplistic to say, but it's like the game board, kind of, and it's just an online version of it, or
Yeah, kind
yeah.
of the game board
Mhm.
and what we would normally call our character sheet, which is all your character's information, how strong they are, how fast they can move, what equipment I have in me, my inventory, my spells, basically all that paper that we would normally take from session to session is in here instead.
And you would normally decide all these things like before you begin your your story arc together, and you can accrue things along the way. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and character creation is like a whole nother beast in and of itself that I don't think we have time to really dive
No, I
into.
just yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is awesome. Thank you for sharing. And just so you know, if you're watching or listening, I'm gonna ask these guys for resources, so this will be a part of it, D&D Beyond. So if you're curious and want to start playing or play already and want to use these resources, they'll be in the show note chats on the Anchor website. So the
Yeah.
audio version only. This will be in the show notes. Mhm.
And I think one more thing to maybe highlight that
Yeah.
would be good to know is that up on the top where it says strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma, those 6 stats are like your character's overall statistics. And so you see for Jasper, his strength has a +3 modifier, whereas my dexterity has a 0. Basically 0 means he's average. He's not really great at being dexterous, but he's not bad at it. But the +3, he's super strong. He's a giant turtle, right? I have a +3 to my wisdom, so he's really wise. He's very astute at noticing things and seeing things in the world, understanding mannerisms of people. But I have a -1 to my intelligence. So he's not the brightest bulb on the tree, right? So I may see some tracks of the thieves and I'm like, oh, look at those great footprints in the dirt. But maybe I'm not smart enough to like put 2 and 2 together or even to communicate that to the party. So it's fun for me to like play with that aspect of a character who's really good at one thing but not good at another. Really kind of giving yourself that crutch to lean onto as well.
Very cool. Great. So with that being said, I just want to say hi to the people in the comments too. You're all leaving really great stuff. We will definitely be talking about that after we do the live adventure. So if you have questions for these amazing humans as we go through, put them in the chat. We'll do that after the adventure. But Sam, are you in a good position to start leading the adventure? Is everybody ready? Does anybody need a cup of tea? I don't know what you a glass of
Just one more sip.
something?
I think I'll be okay.
Yeah.
Jasper would normally partake in some herb, so
I think I'm in a position to live up to the shirt that my friends got me as a
World Duke. It's so good.
Should we introduce our characters first a little bit more?
Please,
Or
Ooh, yes.
yeah,
That
before
would
we
be
dive
great.
in.
And just to give expectation to the audience, so we're going to go in like this is going to be like a 10-20 minute glimpse into the world that these amazing humans have created. So I'm going to stay silent for the next little bit, unless you guys have questions or thoughts. Go ahead, Sam.
Yeah, I'll start just because Diamendi will not be present at this adventure.
Great.
He might come up
Thank you.
later, but I can. As I mentioned before, Diamendi is an elf or an eladrin. He can change his form to look like a different season. This doesn't necessarily have to correspond with the current season. It usually more corresponds with how he's feeling. So yeah, basically I made a mood ring character. His class is known as a sorcerer. He is what's known as a wild magic sorcerer. Basically magic is coursing through him to a point where he has trouble controlling it. It makes for really fun moments. Things get out of hand and I get to roll what's called a D100. And we literally consult a table where some ridiculous thing happens, from turning someone into a plant to summoning a unicorn right next to me. And everything in between.
yeah.
But that's Diamendi. He will not be too soon. He will inside references, but he will not be present at this conversation, though I do hope we get to revisit him later. I'll pass it over to whoever would like to go next.
Vane, I'll just continue with Vane, is an elf Asmir. Her class is a warlock. She kind of like uses the powers of an individual called the Raven Queen to boost some of her abilities and skills. My goal for the character that I've been playing with is her goal is to be like the ultimate huntress inside of our little world and campaign. It goes from everything from hunting wild creatures or extraplanar monsters to unicorns that friends summon.
Even emotions too.
Yeah.
I love that.
Who's gonna
Andrew,
go?
would you go?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll go next. So I play Marvel, or his full name is Marvel at Fable, based off of like this naming nomenclature that the Tabaxi that he is, which is the race. He's like a cat humanoid, and I fashioned him kind of like a Maine Coon, like just a huge, like kind of really furry cat. Like if you can think about it, that's bipedal. But he is a rogue, which is a class that most people are maybe familiar with, kind of like thieves or like maybe like an assassins. But he's actually one that it's more in line to being like an investigator, like someone that's like actually really good at finding clues, more like a Sherlock Holmes. He's kind of MO is really like seeking and devouring as much knowledge as he can, to because he's very curious as a cat and he wants to be able to have this at his fingertips. So he has a lot of skills as a result of that curiosity, and he follows a deity named Agma, which is a kind of god of knowledge that really supports and like kind of drives him forward. So, yes, he is a very motivated character, and I found that I myself like to play very capable characters when I end up playing D&D because I like to have options. Awesome. Maybe I'll popcorn over to Christian.
Cool.
I play as Pond. He's a water genasi monk. We were joking about the name because at some point in the story I mispronounced it, and now I can't ever remember if it's Ganassi or Genasi.
Or Genasi, maybe it's silent.
We're not sure. It's his race is essentially an elemental being. Think like a genie came over from a different realm, and through normal procreation, created a half person, half genie, and they're aligned to the element of that spirit. So water, I can breathe underwater. Really good at swimming, things like that. My skin's blue, and I play as a monk, specifically a drunken master monk. So any Rock Lee fans out there, if you know what that means, very similar fighting style to that. Yeah, he's not the smartest tool, sharpest tool in the shed, but he's very brave, gets in there and hits things a lot with his staff.
Sounds fun.
We got a Rock Lee fan in the chat.
He's not a fan of
Oh,
Hanks.
Dude, Rock Lee, he's the best.
Yeah. Benjamin?
Yeah, I'm playing Jasper. As we know, he's a giant. He's a turtle, so he's a giant turtle creature. He's a cleric of the peace domain. He follows the goddess Eldath. Basically, what he does is he really bolsters the party. He's a healer at heart, right? So I heal everybody with not only my spells, but I have healing kits I can tend to people as well. I bolster them so they can hit things better and achieve what they want to do better as well. And he can also deal some damage when he needs to. But he's kind of the
In vicious ways.
Yeah, in vicious ways, which is why it's hard for him. It's like he does like to deal things, but like it's some of his magic manifests in kind of scary ways sometimes. And so yeah, I love him. He's awesome, but he's kind of that guidepost of wisdom often for the party too. Sometimes the rolling joke is WWJD, what would Jasper do? And so it is helpful. But yeah, he's just a big old dope, and I love him.
So for our little demonstration, we're going to get into a very common hypothetical D&D situation. A group of orcs recently attacked a caravan of travelers, stealing a precious relic of Ogma. Our heroes were hired to retrieve it. After a brief skirmish with a small war party, our heroes have risen victorious. They knocked out what they believe to be the leader, He lies before them unconscious, tied up, waiting to be awakened by the party. Now, before I pass it off to the players, I want to mention that now the view. I wanted to mention that now the viewers and the players are all on the exact same page with no more or less information.
Yeah.
So you see this hulking creature. You've tied it up. He's got a couple of scrapes and wounds from the battle. Some of you were licking your own. In the Tabaxi's case, in the other cases, you're kind of looking over yourselves. How do you proceed?
I think first and foremost, Jasper would like to kind of take a look around and make sure there are no other orcs that are maybe in the trees or like off to the side, maybe watching, just to make sure there's nobody else around.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me a perception check as you explore this area.
I will roll my d20 and add +6. That is a natural 20. Oh, it's a
Nice.
26 for my perception check.
Yeah, so you're not even paying attention to this orc on the ground. You just stand sentry, and Jasper kind of steps up, and you just do this big scan as you kind of look over, and it's eerily calm. There's a soft breeze on the area. It's quite a contrast to the battle that you guys just had. The clashing of metal, the noise of the spells going off, and the constant whacking of Pond's quarterstaff. Just completely gone from the area that you're looking at. You feel pretty confident that any of the orcs around you are either dead or the one tied up in front of you.
Yeah, and I think Jasper will kind of take that breath and turn to the party and, well, it seems like we're all alone here now. Nothing else in the distance.
All right, that's good. Looks like he's got nowhere to run. And I think Marble will look and lock eyes with this orc, and if he's kind of on the ground, will kind of lower himself to kind of get eye to eye with him.
So he's currently kind of seated, but tied up and unconscious, and would require you guys making the active decision to wake him up. He's
got it.
Definitely been roughed up, but he is unconscious at the moment.
Did we knock him unconscious?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And have we searched the bodies yet, or
Yeah.
everything for this relic?
I would say the fight just happened,
Cool.
and the first thing you guys did is you made sure the one orc that was left alive, you tied him up.
All right.
Let's look for the relic.
Yeah, let's investigate around and see what we can find.
Sure.
Okay, great.
Where are you checking for this relic? Tell me about this investigation check you're making. Are you checking this orc? Are you checking all the orcs? Are you just leaving this guy unconscious while you just search all the bodies and what's going on?
Did they come from a particular direction? Were they moving, or did we see them camping out somewhere and we happened upon them?
I would say you were investigating the area where you thought some orcs might be after you were hired by the town, and they tried to ambush you, vastly underestimating the skill of your party.
Cool.
Okay.
What do we know what the actual relic is? The size of it? Is it a necklace? Is it a reliquary? How large would it be?
Give me a history check.
Excellent.
And I'm going to put you at advantage, which means you get to roll 2 d20s and take the higher number because Marvel, you effectively worship Agma.
Okay, here I go.
Come on.
That is going to be an 18.
Nice. Good roll.
Yeah.
Good roll.
From the information you gathered, you might have kept some of this to yourself, but you think it's a small tome. More than likely, a book of some information, some just valuable planner information, book of knowledge coming right from Agma himself.
So Marvel will speak up at this point and say, "We're looking for a book. It can fit right into a small pocket. Very valuable information. It could look as plain as day, but it could also be very gilded and flashy, but I would actually think it's a little plain. Look at and he kind of will pull out his own holy symbol to Agma, and it's very plain on a simple golden chain and kind of a wooden symbol of just I believe it's just actually an open book with a quill in it. It might have this sort of iconography on it, but it might be in pockets or in a crate somewhere. That's what we're looking for.
Vane is going to turn upon maybe we should try for a better look. And she's going to touch him on the shoulder and cast fly, so Vane and Pond can fly up into the air to get a better view of the area and look around a little bit and see if there's any
Amazing.
encampments around.
Amazing.
Why not? Yeah.
And like, yeah, as they take off, Jasper will kind of turn to Marvel and say, "Well, while they're looking up there, you want to look at the other bodies, and I can start tending to the orc here, and perhaps bring him back to consciousness so we can question him."
Yeah, just make sure he's tied up real good. We can't have him going anywhere.
Well, you know me and my rope. I'm very good at tying knots. And Jasper will go over to that orc and just taking out one of my healer's kits, I will begin kind of bandaging his wounds and trying to bring him back to consciousness.
Yeah,
I'll
absolutely.
obviously take my time and let Marvel kind of rummage through, let them fly up before I try to like put the smelling salts under his nose and bring him back though.
Yeah. So let's start with an investigation check from Marvel as you just kind of scan around and you look through these orcs, kind of looting any bags they might have.
Wow. It was a 1 with a +8. That is a 9 total.
Yeah, so
investigation.
you scan around and just a lot of these orcs, they have mismatched armor. Each one's probably rocking an axe and a sword, but just as you go around checking each body, it's hard to tell. A lot of them aren't keeping things on them. You're actually shocked that you don't even come away with much more than like 5 copper. Maybe you find a silver across all of them. It's a party of orcs. They're looking for battle and probably not much more. And then Christian, I'm sorry, Pond, Vane, you may both either make a perception check or one of you can make at advantage as you scan around to see what you can learn or what you can deduce.
Could I do a
What's
survival check? I was wanting specifically to like look for broken twigs, like maybe they were camping out somewhere.
Yeah, you're tracking. I love it. No, that's perfect request.
Nice.
And granted, so if you'd prefer to make a survival check, go for it.
I'll just let him do that at advantage.
Okay.
Nice.
By helping him, right?
Yeah, by
Yeah.
helping him. Yeah.
Come on, baby. No whammy,
18.
no whammy. Nice, strong.
So you fly up into the air and you see the spot that the orcs ambushed you from, and you're pretty impressed by the approach that they did. It faces the trail where the previous caravan had reported getting attacked. It really all just starts to click and make sense. But the closer you get to it, you can conclude that this isn't all of the orcs, but you just can't tell where they came from. They did a good enough job covering their tracks, and unfortunately, an 18 doesn't get there. Okay. So Jasper, you're healing this orc, and he starts to come to consciousness. You see him just kind of look around, this hulking creature about as large as you without a shell. His armor is just this amalgamation of mismatched pieces.
And he is tied up really well, right?
And he is tied up. You see him test it, but then he also stops fighting when he notices you're healing him.
Yeah.
And he just kind of looks at you and he's, "Why do you do this?"
He's like, "Are you feeling okay now? You got pretty banged up in that battle there."
"Why do you not just kill Shugog?"
Oh, well, I think we want to ask you some questions first. And we may not need to kill you at all if you cooperate.
"Shugog will not betray his tribe."
Oh, well, maybe not a betrayal of sorts, but I need someone else. Marvel, perhaps you would like to come interrogate this gentleman here. What is your name, sir?
"Shugog. Iron Tusk."
Shugog Iron Tusk. Well, Marvel, why don't you come on over here?
And Marvel is like very frustrated that he has not found anything, and just does not make sense to him.
Pond and Vane, I would say at this moment, you also notice Marvel starting to gather over while you guys fly in the air, if you're so curious.
I think I'll fly down and join them and relay what we had found.
Yeah. So as described, you see this big orc. He's awake. He's seated and tied up on the ground. He looks a little old for his race. He's got white hair progressing down into 2 long braids that are, decorated with intricate pieces. His right tusk is missing, replaced with a metal one that's molded and mounted on the stump of his tusk. And you just see him. He's healed a little bit. He's got a very confused look on his face. He just awoke from battle to someone that wasn't on his side healing him.
I think Marvel will kind of approach and just kind of like wipes his face down with some frustration and Shugog. That's your name, right? I'm having trouble just putting 2 and 2 together here. Why would you have something like an Ogma book? Why would you steal something like this? Do you know what you've taken? Does this look similar to you? And then he kind of pulls out his holy amulet and just shows him. Does this look familiar?
Yeah. Are you trying to intimidate him, or are you merely just frustrated and asking right now?
I think I'm just more frustrated and asking. I'm not.
Sure.
I'm not trying. Yeah, I don't think I'm threatening him.
Shugog, he looks at you and ought not care of your stupid tomes and books.
I think Pon's gonna lean over to Jasper and ask. He'll shake his flask and ask if maybe the orc might be loosened by a little bit of whiskey.
Yeah, Jasper sees you shake your never-ending bottle of whiskey, and he goes, "Well, I think orcs would probably enjoy. I mean, you can ask him if he would like some, but you just perhaps gave me a great idea. Perhaps I'll get him a little high while we're at it." And you see Jasper kind of pull out his little pouch and his pipe, and he picks a very particular herb, and you see him kind of pull it out and pack a very fresh bowl and sparks it and lights it up with his magical energy and takes a deep inhale. And as you see him holding this, he just begins exhaling it above you, and the spiraling circle of smoke begins appearing above all of you and just wafts and wavers down over this large sphere. And I'm going to cast Zone of Truth on all of us.
Nice.
So now there's a magical zone, guards against deception in a 15-foot radius until this. So he needs to make.
Shugog makes a wisdom saving throw,
I believe
right?
it's a wisdom saving throw. Yes.
All right, I'm going to roll with a real dice here. What's he got to beat?
Zone of Truth. Charisma saving throw of 14, please.
Ooh.
Do
He
we
just
also
barely fails.
Oh yes.
Amazing.
So you begin to to better word that. So you see the zone of truth land around him, and you just kind of see this moment where he kind of struggles and then just kind of almost relaxes as it just kind of shudders
of
over
smoke
him.
kind of work their way up into his nose as he's breathing.
You see him relax, relax uncomfortably. I don't have a better way to describe what just fell over him. As he just sits there and it's staring daggers at you as he kind of also realizes what just happened.
Yeah. And Jasper kind of well, now that you're relaxed, maybe you could answer our questions truthfully.
I think Marvel starts to actually perk up at this, and he takes out his own pipe and starts packing it with tobacco and lights it up. And
Pon, do you still offer him the booze?
I think I would. Maybe that's the first test. Yeah, I'll lean over and kind of shout over Marvel and say, "Shugath, do you want a drink?"
He kind of looks at you and he thinks about this. Yeah, he thinks about
one. I know he's gonna want it.
He looks at you and tell me this isn't poisoned.
Nope. I'll take a sip out of the one I'm gonna give him, just so he knows.
I would say he's smart enough to know that you're in the zone of truth as well, and he kind of leans his big underbite with his tusks kind of forward as his hands are still tied for you to pour some of the whiskey in his mouth.
I hand it to him.
Well, there you go, Shuga. You see, we're good friends. We're the friends of Shen. We're very friendly. So why don't you be friendly back to us?
What is book that furry one whines about?
You're telling me you don't know what the book is?
Orc take many things. What orcs win in battle, it belonged to orcs.
Okay.
Well, what about the caravan of travelers? The ones you attacked not too long ago down the road. You took things from them, yes?
Yes, orc win them in battle. We take what we win.
Shugop, did you
As
know?
Gromush commands.
As Gromosh commands.
Yeah, give me a history check.
History. That's gonna be 20.
Yeah,
Nice.
you know Gromosh to be a huge deity in, like, the deity of deities in orc religion. He wants people to fight the good fight, wants them to find a good death, be worthy of his name. And, he's basically just calling out, like, yep, orcs doing what orcs do when he says, as Grumash commands, that I get to keep what I take in battle because that's how battle works.
I think what Marvel would do is, and just based on that history roll, it seems like I might know a decent bit about Gromosh. And
Absolutely.
I think what he would do is probably say, like a common saying, in like in orcish, that would be like, meet your enemies head first. To the victor go the spoils, and like say that in orcish.
So Marvel speaks orcish.
Yes.
Yeah.
He does speak
No.
Orcish.
So I would say you catch him really off guard with this, and he just in orcish responds, "You speak our tongue," which to the rest of you sounds like "Utaku gatakatu."
Yeah.
And he says, I do. See, that's what my God enables me to do, is to know all about what there is to know. And in that book are secrets that need to be back at the temple where I'm from. Now tell me, did Gromosh actually speak to you? Has he spoken to you much like I am speaking to you? Is this a general edict that you're trying to follow in his name?
Give me an intimidation check. At advantage because you spoke to him in orcish.
16, not bad.
He kind of looks at you and he holds your gaze for like a solid like 10 15 seconds before just he kind of relents and looks down almost ashamedly so. Grumash comes to those who die in battle. Clearly I have not died in battle.
You know, and I continue to say this in Orcish, it would be a real shame if you didn't die in battle. This is honestly pathetic. This is not the type of death that you would want from us, right?
He looks up at you. You wouldn't. A coward. You bring me to life just to slay me? Like cattle?
Perhaps we can come up with a deal then. Where's the book?
In my den with my kin.
And I know he's telling the truth. All right. And I kind of go back and switch back into common. Our friend here has revealed that the books...
You will not harm them.
We won't. As long as you cooperate. We just want the book. There are many innocent folks that you killed in order to receive some sort of treasure that does not seem important to you.
We're
gonna do you a favor.
For the book.
What'd you attack the caravan for?
For battle. It had guards. Warriors, they challenge us. Come through our territories.
You don't even know why you attacked it. So that's really frustrating to me. Marvel will like puff on his pipe. Take us to the den. We won't harm you or your friends. We just want the book. And then we'll let you go. You can have your honor, you can live another day, and you can die in battle. Gromosh.
This is all in common, Andrew?
This last part is
Yeah,
in common.
This
Yeah.
whole rest of the
Great.
conversation.
That's what I
is in
thought.
common.
Thank you.
Yeah.
He looks to the three of you. I will take the shelled one to my den. He healed my wounds. And when I will give him your tome.
I gave you a drink.
Well, I think this perhaps sounds fair. My friends will need to be nearby, just in case anything goes wrong or, your friends don't listen to you. But you promise me you'll try everything in your power to keep me safe.
Give me a persuasion check.
Feels good, dude. 19.
And then I'm gonna roll for him. He looks at you, knowing the zone of truth is still active, and says, "On Luthic, Cave Mother, you have my word. You will be safe."
Well, all right then. That's all I needed to hear.
And you see Jasper kind of reach in his pocket and he pulls out a small knife and he goes right to the ropes and he goes, "Just hold still now." And he snaps the ropes open from his feet and his hands.
Well, get yourself up and dust yourself off.
Shugog stands up and stretches his limbs and... May I grab my axe?
Well, as long as you're not planning to use it against any of us, I don't see why not.
I think Marvel would grab it and then like hand it to him.
He takes the axe, nods, puts it on his back piece. My den. We will begin marching. 4 leagues east.
All right, well, you heard the fella. Why don't you all just keep your distance, stay pretty far behind. I'm going to pack myself a fresh bowl, Grumage, and then we'll be on our way. How's that sound?
Shugog thanks you for sparing him.
Oh, well, you did it to yourself, Shugog. You were honest, you were open, and very helpful, and we appreciate it.
You made sure Shugoth honest.
Well, it wasn't me. It was my god Eldath, but she likes to make sure we can all be peaceful people.
Peace. Ugh. And we'll stop right there. I think that's a good ending.
Yeah.
Hell yeah. I can't wait to find out more about him and his clan of people.
No, we're getting into it.
Yeah. What's going on?
What? Yeah.
Den? And it's random. It can't be just random, right?
Yeah,
No,
there's
there's
no way.
something going on.
Oh,
There's
it's
got to
gonna
be a lot of
awesome.
good stuff in there
Yeah,
too.
a lot of good
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Did you see in the chat someone was like Fugog, a real one?
Yes.
You guys, that was so awesome. Thank you so much. It was such a gift. Like I'm excited to go back and listen to it again. And it was just really beautiful and vulnerable of all of you. So thank you. I'm curious because so all of you like a couple things. Like one, it's just really inspiring to listen to, like the vulnerability in the relationship, and you all feel very comfortable with each other. Do you find that like doing this each week together, does it feel like it affects your mental health, or you're like, no, it's like not so much a part of it for me, or that's not something that I think about, or
Oh, it's so therapeutic for me.
Yeah.
how? What about it? Like what brings that into your world, or what does it feel like?
So this is a total like change, but so like Daymendi's big thing is in elves, they have a very structured reincarnation system.
Yeah.
And it's evident when someone is dying of old age that they're about to re-enter that cycle. Something physical actually happens to their irises where you know, oh, hey, this is a good thing. You're going to get respite from this world and you will come back. Diamendi's story is he actually has someone really close to them that died that didn't go through that cycle. And that's upsetting to him. And so like and personally, I've always kind of struggled with like death and what it means and what happens. And so like that's kind of Diamendi's thing. Like that's how he engages with a lot of characters. What do you think happens? I know what happens for elves. I know what didn't happen for my friend, and I'm real not happy about it. And I want answers. So like that's a lot of like just I mean, that's like the most extreme example, but like just even tidbits of like interactions like that is I find super therapeutic with, just weighing moral actions and conversations with these guys.
That is very cool. Yeah, thank you.
I find
go
it
ahead.
like, for me, like I think we are all kind of driven to like the escape, right? Too like that's a huge part of it. Just a bastion from like the crazy things that are going on in the real world. And I have multiple groups. I think this group and another group that I meet with really regularly have been like so core to my mental health in the pandemic, especially. I think Hope might be on the line. So hey Hope, she's a part of the other group, and being able to escape and also have a sense of control, like even though this is random, like the dice rolls and stuff like that, but having a sense of control over a character and like having faith in the DM, whoever's doing that, to like faithfully do what's best for your characters, but also challenging them and like having an interesting story for you to be compelled by and be interested in for the 2 to 3 hours we may be playing is just so great.
Or
I actually
4 or 5.
or 4 or 5, whatever. I often feel like if I don't get to play like once or twice every 2 weeks, like it's a real burden. Like it's sad to not to be able to play.
I love that. I just to note, I do see the questions in the chat. We will get to those in a second. But Christian or Jason or Benjamin, do you have anything you want to share? It's okay if not to.
Yeah, I mean, mine's a little bit more surface level, but I was just going to say, definitely echo everything that everyone said, but it's also just like a way to socialize and connect and chat. And like we mentioned COVID, and I don't know, it's a really nice opportunity to just get together with friends, work towards something, as Andrew said, like we're all kind of moving towards a common goal in like a pretty safe sandboxy environment. It's just similar to like video games. It's just kind of how I've socialized, I think, a lot of my life growing up, and it's very much a continuation and where relationships deepen, I think, for me.
That's very cool. In the height of the pandemic, I was like, I'm losing my mind, and Benjamin's like, I'm gonna play D&D.
I have community.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For me, like the week to week thing is like it's a real confidence booster. Like it helps to bring out things that you might be self-conscious about, or I used to like to write a lot and I haven't done it a lot very much. And recently, since we started playing, like whenever it's my turn, we take turns writing recaps of what happened in the previous week, and like I just go wild and I just
He
like
kills
write.
it too.
Yeah.
And
oh my god,
it's
so cool.
It's so great to be able to like share with people that like enjoy it and are super supportive of it. And it kind of like leads to being able to open up more and like know like, oh, no matter what happens, like in the days that we're off and not playing, like if these people will be here for me if I need that support. And like that is just like a huge confidence booster and helps me a lot throughout the week.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
We are going through an arc right now where I am currently in the DM seat, so kind of like running the story, and Jason's character made like a very specific choice about his relationship with the deity essentially that he kind of worships, and it's been really nice to kind of explore that personally with him and just see some of the risks he's taking with the character because it can be so personal. Like there's going to be maybe a lot of changes like fundamentally the character like that he might like incorporate from a acting perspective, but also from like a mechanical perspective like could change in the future depending on what happens. And he's taken a huge risk. He's been great with like the recaps. Like I feel like almost like a proud father seeing it all unfurl.
Yeah.
I do. If Benjamin, if you want to share,
Oh
you
yeah,
can. But there's
yeah.
no.
No, obviously echoing what everybody else said too, of course. But yeah, I love to be able to tell stories,
Yeah.
and especially telling stories with friends, and like the amount of laughter that happens, or even
Oh
like
my God.
tears from time to time. Like it's really beautiful what we're able to do and tell together. And I know for me, what's also made this my favorite D&D thing I've been a part of is the fact that I can rotate as DM and player.
It's so
So
great.
I
Yeah.
love being a DM, but it's a lot of work, and I'm always
Yeah.
exhausted after I do it, but I love it. And this is a great group that give you visceral feedback. Like the next day, there's always like a 3-hour text chain that goes back and forth about how great the sessions were. But I can step out of my character for a little bit and be the storyteller and drive narratives that I'm interested in telling, because I see arcs that are being thrown out, or like when Sam's DMing or Andrew's DMing or we're playing, like I see something like, oh, that character made a choice, and now when I DM, like I want to pull that thread, right? Because I'm interested in those story arcs. And so it's just really fun to be able to explore all these weird aspects. Like Sam said, like death is really interesting to us, and I know Sam and I have both very similar experiences with losing someone very close to us. And it's to be able to explore that. And we lost Pond in one of our campaigns. He died and he became the whoosh maker, and it was
I
incredible.
remember.
Yeah. But to be able to bring him back to life was very emotional. But we also like it's a part of his character now, and seeing how death translates across time and how it affects our characters is just it's beautiful and profound. In playing a game of make 'em ups, I love it.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
Expanding off of that, I think it
Mhm.
also really it expands the quality of it as well when we do this rotating DM, because it allows you don't have to be so worried about what happens when you're done with what you're working on, because
Yeah.
it's not your problem,
Yeah.
which is such a huge weight off your shoulders. Like I don't have to worry about what I have to do. I'm putting everything I can into this awesome little story that we're telling right now. And the second I'm done, it's Andrew's problem. And then I don't have to
Yeah.
worry about it for like 6+ weeks. And it like that's really great, because that means that whole time while I was DMing, as Ben said, his wheels are turning, Andrew's wheels are turning, and they come up with their own amazing story that they get to tell. And it's been really awesome.
Yeah, and we all have such different DM styles
We
too,
do.
so it's
Yeah.
really fun to see like who's exploring what themes, who likes to throw weird mechanical things at us. We just played a chess game last night. Like it was freaking so cool, but it was something like none of us had explored before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I totally go through moments where like Andrew will do this beautiful introduction for a character. I'm like,
Yeah.
"Man, he gave me the eye color. God damn!
Yeah.
I'm just falling
Yeah.
way short on my narration game with this new NPC. Like, but like it's a good
But your
thing. Like,
dinosaur noises are so
Dude,
good.
that-
Dinosaur
Yeah.
noises
Dinosaur
were
noises were
Get out of
amazing.
here! Get out of here!
Would you feel comfortable sharing a dinosaur noise?
Oh my
Oh my
god!
god.
Yeah, the answer to this question is yes. So when it was my turn, I was going third, so I had plenty of time, and I was just like, I'm doing a dinosaur island, like that's what's happening. So they were walking in the forest, and they had already encountered like a couple of things, and they just hear like this. And then like a raptor charges out of the thing or whatever.
That's
Or-
so
or-
good.
So good.
My favorite one was when and it ended with a big fight with the T-Rex. It has to. What the heck
Yeah,
else are you gonna
yeah,
do with the dinosaur island? And like they didn't want to see it. And the long story short, there was a magical barrier between it. And Marvel's getting so close. And I just love like the whole time I'm just Jurassic Parking this whole. It just
Yeah.
and Marvel's like.
Oh god.
I'm a cat. I'm curious. I have to look.
I
Like,
have
I
to
have to
look.
look.
I have to look.
I need
Yeah.
to know the knowledge of what this thing looks like.
Yes.
And he like tries doing it, and he just whiffed his stealth check. So sure enough, it just turns and looks at him and just and then like he sees the T-Rex. So
That's
it was
very
good.
cool.
yeah. No, that was fun. I'm pretty sure I was in a hotel room one of the nights when
I
during
think you
my
were.
DMing, and
Yes.
that did not stop me. No,
Your
that
neighbor's
was-
like, they are doing weird shit.
What's going on?
what
I
are
was
these guys up to?
literally like him through that arc. We're just like laughing because like
It's so
it's
good.
just so good, and Sam is enjoying it so much, and we're enjoying it so much because Sam is enjoying it so much
Yeah.
too.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of that like kind of reciprocal feedback that happens that
Yeah.
just makes us smile.
I was just
There is an
thinking about
insane
two-
amount of camaraderie that like we just all share, and it's great.
Yeah.
Well, and
Well, Ben, I'm sorry.
Oh,
I
go ahead.
interrupted Ben.
Oh no, I was just thinking about like, oh, other themes and the things we did. I was like,
Yeah.
I remember you said, Sam, like when I was DMing last time, like Andrew started to have a romantic relationship with this elf Vintier woman that she's like, she owns a wine shop, she's really beautiful, and like she was really into tabaxis, and they hit it off. And I remember Sam saying like, I've never experienced romance in D&D, and it
Yeah,
was
that
really
was
fun to watch. And
that was an interesting experience to go through.
yeah, and I loved DMing that and like watching Andrew's character be uncomfortable with it, but then kind of like move into it, and like it's just fun to explore those themes as well. Like on one side of the coin we're fighting dinosaurs, on the other side we're telling a love story. Yeah, it's just really cool.
I think that's so interesting. I have two questions about that. One is I think Andrew, is Hope in the chat. Hope, hi if you're out there.
Hi, Hope.
I think she may,
Also,
she may
hi,
have left,
Kyle.
but yeah.
So, to those listening, Hope also plays D&D, and I think it'd be really cool. She has a group of all ladies that plays D&D, so I think it'd be really cool to do like a part
Yeah.
2, maybe.
Oh yeah.
Oh
But-
yeah, you have to.
Oh my
I
god.
think that could
Yeah.
be cool. So if
Yeah.
you're into that, let me know in the chat or later in
I'm gonna let you know
in
in the chat
comments.
right now that I'm into that.
Yeah.
That is so I play with Hope and the other campaign that is just as important as this one is, and it's actually female dominant, and it's really
Yeah.
interesting to see like what this group gravitates towards, is like mostly interested in, and like what that
Guns.
group is.
I do have a follow-up about that. Yeah, I have a follow-up about that that kind of leads into one of the questions in the chat. But I'm curious, just off the cuff, like, what do you notice that's different?
Well, for instance, like, I mean, I hope she's here. Like, she probably loves it.
Getting so many shout outs.
She's like so into like actually into the romance and like into
Yeah.
like flirting with like NPCs, and also I
Cool.
think not to be too stereotypical, but like our DM Shannon, she's super into. I get a lot of the descriptions that Sam just gave me a shout out for. I get inspiration from her because she gives such lovely descriptions about attire, and like she takes such careful details about like the even like formal wear that might be going on with the characters if we're at like at a ball or something like that with her campaign. It's all so specific. She takes great detail and from that aspect. And it's also like not always about the combat. Like, I mean, our game's not always about the combat either. We were both very role play heavy in terms of the game style. That's just my preference as well. But there's also, I don't think the genders like really affect it all too much, but it's nice to have the diversification within the group, which is something I really enjoy about them, and they're just like fun people. And it's also, I think, also one the biggest. Sorry, I'm having a bunch of tangents here, but like I think one of the main differences too is that we are all a group of like mostly seasoned D&D players, and like that group is mostly. Maybe half of them are seasoned, and then another half of them are like pretty new to it, and that's very interesting to have that dynamic because it ends up being those that are newer aren't limited by the rules, and so they can bring a lot of good fun chaos and like ideas to the table because they aren't thinking about the rules. They just want to have fun and they want to tell a good story, and that's like a really good aspect of it.
I heard about a Jane Austen D&D campaign where like you just like go through and like you're at a party if you're familiar with Jane Austen, and like do you go talk to Mr. Darcy or not, or like so like those are, so D&D can have many different types of storylines too if you're new to it, which is I think really cool. But I am curious, as a group of people who present mostly like I feel like most of you present on the outward side like very strongly male in a society that kind of looks down, I think, still on like men having emotions and being vulnerable and perhaps being creative and silly with each other and making dinosaur noises on a Wednesday night. To me, I think it's the coolest thing in the world. But do you feel that, or has that ever been a part of like you exploring D&D, or is that you're like, no, that really hasn't played a part for me? What's it like for you?
I am lucky enough in my adult life to really leaning to not being ashamed of what I enjoy.
Yeah.
And so whether I'm in my volleyball community, in my work community, in my any of the different things I participate, I will not hesitate to talk about how I got to run an island filled with dinosaurs and be a T-Rex, and it was amazing. I mean, so personally, Yeah, like I said, I wish I discovered it sooner. Like I talk about how I shamed it when I was younger, and I definitely went through that period. But in my adult life, I've told my boss to his face, and he got jealous, and now he asks me about our campaign every week. We have a one-on-one for work, and he wants to know what Dave Mendy's up to because this new employee of his is absolutely obsessed with this game called D&D that he loves so much.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
I
Yeah.
was at a sorry, yeah, I was
Do it.
I was at an after work event yesterday, and yesterday we actually played D&D as well. And we have a new CEO in Americas, and it was basically an after event, so we could all get to know him. It was like mostly HR people and new hires. And I didn't stick around too long. I had a drink, and then I was saying goodbye. I was like, "Hey, I'm heading out here, Matt," and then John, the other CEO. And they were like, "Oh, what are you doing? Where you heading out so early?" I was like, "Oh, I got Dungeons and Dragons tonight." They're like, "Oh, like D&D?" And I was like, "Yeah, yeah." They're like, "Wow, well, go have fun." I was like, "Okay." And it was just like cool to see these two, like an Australian and British guy, like who were just like I didn't feel any shame. I didn't even second guess it. And then it was like later on, I was in the car. I was like, "Oh, I think that could have been weird." Or like if I was at my previous company, I never would have done that. You know. And so yeah, it was just interesting learning like the audience too, and learn to share. But like Sam said, like let's just own what we love because you know life's too short at the end of the day.
I think that's the best part of getting to like I'm now in my early 30s and like getting to my late 20s, like early 30s. I think that's the best piece of advice is just like you don't have to worry about being loved or liked by anyone. Like you found your friend group, the people that you want to be with and like have fun with, and like the things that you love to do, and you don't have to be embarrassed by them anymore. I'm so done with my 20s for that reason, and I can just have fun with the people I know that love things like this and not be ashamed by it. But yeah, at the same time, Ben and I and Christian all worked at the same company. I didn't talk a lot about D&D when I was there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of talking at the company.
That's also fair.
So true. No, I wanted to highlight something that you said though, Andrew, of when you finally find those people who love you for what you love too. It's so important, and not to make it about us, Kate, but if you don't mind me sharing, I won't get too deep into it. But like one of the reasons that like we're together today is that I was able to share with you something that was deeply personal about my sexuality and my position in my body, and that I'd never been able to share with anybody else, and that I thought until the day I die, this would be my secret, my thing that I would have to, I was in the closet, right? And I didn't think I would ever come out. And I was able to, she was the first person I was able to come out for and be accepted and loved for and celebrated. And I wept that night, and it was beautiful. I was like, oh, right, this is how we should exist in the world. Like, we shouldn't hide any of this stuff, and we should step first forward with that and be champions for it too. And it was just very informative, and I love you. So end of story. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Yay!
I love you too.
Good podcast, you too.
Well, and it's hard too because no, thank you for saying that. And it's hard too because all of you are so interesting to me, and like I would love to have like more detailed questions with each of you individually as well. So Benjamin, because I think we should talk more about that. But the thing that I think is like you said, just like so beautiful, and like for me is such a big part of being able to be creative or my mental health existing in a positive space or not is like having those people. It's having the people that you can be you with. And you're also inspiring because you have found that every Wednesday night. And one of the reasons like I'm so honored to have you all here. Or Jason or Christian, were you thinking like other things outside of that realm, or are you
No, I just the quote, those who mind don't matter and those who matter don't mind. Yeah, just kind of.
Oh, look at you, Pawn dropping.
Wow, real knowledge.
Maker
itself.
Yeah, I've got lots of quotes. Yeah, no. I think I've surrounded myself with people at this point either through intentional filtering or intentional filtering. It's just, I don't know. Like Sam said, I've just kind of stopped caring about. I don't hide it anymore, and if they care, then probably not going to hang out with them for too much longer. Yeah. So
that's strong though.
Yeah, it's like they all said before, like once you kind of like let go and stop like worrying about what the other people think of what you find enjoyable and what you're passionate about, then you can find others that also enjoy those things and are also passionate about those things. And then that's when you find your people.
Yeah.
That's That's beautiful. I love that. I have sort of a tag question to that is you all have jobs outside of like I think of like a normal D&D like realm, or actually Jason, I don't know what you do. But I know like for instance like Benjamin and Christian and Andrew right now all work in a more corporate environment. Like how do you, and Sam as well, Jason, are you the same or different? And also is that, how do you find your people? I think that's hard for a lot of folks. Like do you have any like connectors for like, do you ask people in the office space if they want to play D&D? Do you have any websites where people might be able to find each other, or like, or should they play World of Warcraft? Like, do you have any advice for folks looking for their people who might be into this sort of thing?
Well, I think like I can use Sam as an example because we both play volleyball, and like volleyball was just something like I got into, and like I was probably playing volleyball for a couple of weeks, and like I just met Sam on there, and like never really talked to each other a lot. I don't think, once in a while in games, and then one time I came, like I was walking in, and he and his brother I think were talking about League of Legends, and I was like, hey, I play that game. What do you guys? And so then I just like got in and joined them playing that video game. And then from there, we just kind of like grew closer and closer. And then I was like, yeah, I was like really looking to play D&D. And he's like, you know what? Let me get back to you on that. I might be able to find a group for you to play with.
And here we are.
And here we are.
And then here we are.
Yeah, I almost feel it's like breadcrumbs. You like start with like
Yeah.
something small, like a Mario, right? Like everyone knows Mario, and then it gets like a little bit more into it, and then you keep peeling back layers until you hit something that there's no more commonality there, and then sometimes that doesn't.
And
Cool.
while, there's a little bit of luck involved, like, Chris and I have been friends for probably going on 15, 20 years now. We knew each other in grade school. But I mean, I also think there's an element of, not being afraid to get yourself out there. Like I wasn't a big volleyball player, and I started it because it was something to do when I moved to a new city.
Yep.
And then that's how I met Jason, and I've met other good friends through there, and I've met my other D&D group. I see Kyle is a recent follower, hey buddy, as well as anybody else from that group. Like I met them because I was like, hey, I'm gonna go to the local game shop and just play Magic because I gotta meet new friends. Like it sucks, it does, but unfortunately, it's kind of like you start with the quantity, the shotgun blast, as I often say, and then from there you kind of filter out. You meet your friends not forgotten.
And there are a lot of like meetups
Yeah.
for like local areas, and I think nerds tend to overlap circles. So like if you go to a board game one, like chances are they're probably playing other types of games as well. So I feel like you just kind of start running into the same people.
And I'll give a shout out to a website called Roll20. It's what we use as our virtual tabletop. It's you create a Dungeons and Dragons game. You can build, you can play off of that, and a lot of people are looking for groups. If you're looking to find people to play with, there are, a guy who's just like, man, I just want to run this campaign. I'll play with anybody on the internet. So it's roll20.com is the name of the .net. Roll20.net. And then I would also Google like Roll20 looking for groups. I mean, I'm sure there's a Reddit page of, I'm sure there's a whole Reddit subreddit devoted to people looking for people to just add another player to their group. Because I mean, for reference, Jason and I are in Indianapolis, and these three gentlemen are in Chicago area. So
Yeah. That's really cool advice. And it's also inspiring too, because it just feels like whether it's volleyball or D&D, or you're going to a card night, it's like following the thing that brings you like love first, like finding those things you love. And then maybe your people are at the things you love. That's very cool. I want to get to some of the questions because there are some really cool ones in the chat. One of them is, let's see. Yep, that's the one I was thinking of. Thank you, Scott. The network.
Oh, Scott, great job.
Yay.
Nice. So
You
great.
just hit us with a sending.
Oh, this is so good. Yeah, so great.
How do you decide what campaign/plot line you will follow for the session? Do you create your own or follow a pre-made one?
Great question. Great question.
Does anybody want to take lead on that?
I don't mind taking the lead if you guys don't mind. So
Go for it.
It originally started with just like doing a quick dungeon crawl. So those of you unfamiliar, it's pretty much just combat. It's like moving through a dungeon, fighting creatures, and then another creatures, and eventually killing the big boss down the bottom. That was what I initially led. It was like 3 sessions, and then I kicked it over to Sam, who did Dinosaur Island. No, I
Andrew,
kicked
Blue
it
Alley,
over to
Blue Alley.
Andrew, and Andrew
Yeah.
did Blue Alley, which had like more curiosity to it. It's kind of more investigation and really puzzle solving. And then we went to Dinosaur Island, and it was like narratives just got bigger and bigger as we went on, and this has all been created by ourselves on our own. I know Blue Alley was a pre-made one that
That was a
Andrew kind of
pre-made.
worked out of.
Yeah.
And then out of that, we all just started to tell our own stories because we're a band of adventurers that basically take contracts. And so we can always go to different areas in the world, different groups we'll interact with. So it really is up to our DMs as we're rotating to like take little pieces from one another. And we also kind of get together as DMs and talk about like big themes, characters that are going to transfer over from one story to the other, things like that. But yeah, I think that would be like my answer in a nutshell for that.
Cool. Yeah, and
Yeah.
you can with D&D, it can be more like you curate everything, or there can be like book led.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you
Right.
have like booklet stories that
Mhm.
tell you everything. They'll tell you everything down to how does a character feel, what if something triggers them to revealing information. Like there are, whole they call them modules that are pre-written campaigns.
Cool.
And
But ours has been strictly create our own.
yeah, I mean, I did have that module that I used that Ben made, but for us, like since we've been able to build upon everything that we've all contributed, it's been fun to kind of expand our own universe. And for every single game of D&D, even though there's like a written out setting that like Wizards of the Coast, the company that creates D&D, has published, and you can find information online if you want to. Everyone's game is always going to be different from another person's game, and that's what is so lovely about the game itself.
Yeah.
And even within our old shared community, like we mentioned before, Ben's DM style is very different than my own. Sam's style is very different than my own, and it's always going to be a different type of style, and it keeps the game fresh. And the modules are also there to like help with anybody that maybe has some like creativity blocks at first, or maybe some time constraints.
Mhm.
And I've always used it as a way to just have a script to work off of. I'm a former actor, and you have the scripts, the kind of outline of what to do, but then you can pepper in all the details that are completely your own. So it's not like you're not contributing creatively. It's just your take on something that is your script, your role. It's your version of it, and it's
The
still
remix, bro.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the remix. It's great.
To
Yeah.
any new DM, I would say steal content.
Yeah,
Steal
for sure.
content. Like if you watch a movie and you're just like, man, that story was really great, I'm gonna just copy it and put it into D&D. Like that's good D&D. Like
Yeah.
just at this stage, nothing is purely original. You're inspired. Like
Yeah.
take from what you know and you love and you've experienced to make it into the
Yeah.
story.
Yeah.
I like that. I once heard there's no more originality, but vulnerability feels like it. It's like that.
I
like,
love that, and I would
it's
agree
just being
100%.
That's
like
very
that.
cool.
That's
Thanks, Rando Randy 54. What a
Yeah,
great
thank
question.
you.
Great question.
Scrampsky asked a question too. What's the longest session you've been involved in? Thank you, Network. Thank you, Steph.
I think me and Andrew have the same session.
So is it the same session? Is it?
Dude,
is
what,
it-
like 14 hours was it?
Oh dang, you beat me by a
Wow.
lot.
I think it was my birthday, right? Is that the one?
Mine
I
was
was
my
thinking about
birthday.
the finale. I guess your
Oh.
birthday may have been longer.
My
I
birthday
was
may
thinking
have
about
been
the
longer. Yes,
I was thinking
but
about that big finale that Brian ran, which
that
was, like,
was
an
good too. You
all
tell
day.
that one, and I'll tell my birthday one. 'cause
Yeah,
that
I
one's
mean,
good.
we did this final session of like a 2.5 year campaign, and we were trying to tie it up together, and there were 2 other campaigns intermingled into it.
Oh my
And
land.
so the DM was like, "I'm gonna bring all these people together." It's like a house of like 14 of us. it was chaos, but it was like 14, maybe 16 hours plus of D&D. Like we came there in the morning or like morning afternoon, had
Yeah.
some like brunch coffee, and then we were just like boozing and playing D&D until sundown. It was a long day of D&D, but awesome.
So much fun. Yeah. Our friend Brian also did something. My wife, who was not my wife at the time, for my 29th birthday, and she regrets not making it for my 30th birthday because it was like such a great day for me. Organized for all my friends and all my different D&D groups to be like involved in a super D&D day led by our friend Brian, who was like almost like a showrunner for an entire D&D experience. And over the course of the entire day, it was like 8+ hours, like a different DM would step in, and my character was like the consistent one throughout it. And it was like a very Greek inspired tale, a man lost in time, and then like meets up back with his
You were Andronicus.
I was Andronicus.
And he was looking for Irises.
Iris is my wife's name. But what was so amazing about that is that we had this epic battle. We had like all these different styles of thing. Ben was even a guest DM, and we had a really great moment where this like ancient Greek like character couldn't figure out an elevator.
Yeah.
And it was so much fun. It was like Andrew knows that this is an elevator, but the character does not know it's an elevator. And like
we spent like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
It was just then you trying to figure it out.
It was so much fun. But at the end of it, there was a beautiful moment that Brian orchestrated, where this island it's basically the Odyssey, and this island is like sinking back into the sea, and it's just me, my character Andronicus, who's Andrew, and then my wife now Iris, who was Irisis or whatever. We're falling into the ocean, and I say some last words to her, and he like sets it up perfectly, and in the moment, just with like all the emotion of the whole day and like just the epic story, I felt like I wanted to propose to my wife during that session. And Brian revealed, because I talked to him later that day, he's like, and I was like, I feel like that's what you wanted. Like, were you like manipulating me? Like, is that what you? He's like, kind of.
That's so great.
So I'll never forget it. It was an amazing day, and I mean that's just how flexible like the game can be, and it's not just a set of rules. It's like really just the stories that you can tell with it.
Absolutely.
That's beautiful. You did it for your birthday too, Sam?
Yeah, so I guess it would have been 2 years ago for my birthday. We were just running a long campaign, and I'm like, guys, come over on a Saturday, and we're going to play all day. It was like an 8-hour session. They came over. My lovely wife, Sarah, made a boatload of food for us, like different instances of cooking for us, and we played for like 8 or 9 hours, and my buddy Marky McFly was present for it, and it was actually I'm actually really glad he subbed, because the one thing that was like my biggest memory from that moment was there was this Mark, he'll be the first one to admit, tends to be a relatively shy individual, errs on more on the side of being quiet. And there was just this scene, and it came up in a Snapchat memory the other day, where he just went into this long story about his character, and he was telling it to the other guys. And I'm like, I'm watching one of my best friends from grade school just go into this really long story about his character playing D&D. This is amazing. And so, yeah, it was just a good birthday.
That's really beautiful. Yeah. And Christian and Jason, were yours anywhere near that long? Was it like, have you done like a 14-hour like whole? That sounds
Jason,
so
I
intense.
think you and I have an 8-hour session, or was that 6 hours when we played with?
That was 8 hours. I do have a 12-hour session that I had at Gen Con.
Okay.
And it was like a pre-made thing. Just like me and 2 of my other friends played with, I think, 4 other random people that we'd never met. And we sat there, and the DM was so amazing at bringing characters to life. And he was just like, he like had like all kind of like, this one character had like a sock puppet, and he just like got super involved with it. And he had like a fake hat, and it was like the guy was Mr. Hats, and he was like doing all this crazy stuff. And like 6 hours in, he was like, hey guys, we're like, cause it was like an 8-hour session that we had like planned out for, because like that's what like you put tickets for. And he's like, guys, we're not halfway through this yet. So I like in 2 hours, like I can cut this short, but this is the last session of the day. So if you guys want, we can just keep going until the end of it. And everybody at the table was like, we just like, because we messed around with his characters so much because they were so fun and it was so involved. We were like, yeah, we can stay. So the DM ordered all of us pizza, had pizza brought into Gen Con, and then we finished out the campaign.
That's amazing.
That's fun.
Sounds incredible.
It was awesome.
Mr. Hat.
Guys, guess
with a
who's
bunch
gonna
of
be in my
strangers,
next DM
right?
session?
Like, you didn't know all these people, right?
Yeah.
No, we didn't know any of them. Like we had gone to one of the local bars and had like brought like what are those things called, like the big jugs of like beer, so we were like pouring everybody on the table beer and like just sharing beer and pizza and just playing this game with just a bunch of
That sounds
like
so fun.
mostly strangers, but it was amazing.
Wow,
Nice.
why can't I remember that word?
Sounds
I-
Growler. Pitch
Growler.
Oh,
That's
thank
the
you.
growler.
Gee,
Thanks,
I would've-
Christian.
Bond.
Bond.
Bond, yeah.
Way to go,
Bond
Bond.
Leave it up to the
Bond.
drunken master.
Drunken master himself.
I love that each of those has like a moment of like deep love, like whether that's with strangers or your future wife or your current wife or your best friend. Like that's really cool. I guess you'd have to have some love after 8 to 14 hours.
Yeah, right.
Of being that vulnerable with each other. Christian, was yours different or was yeah.
My longest was actually my first. It was 8-9 hours, and it
Your
was
first game?
Yeah, it was for a bachelor
Wow.
party. It's very similar, right? Someone plans something special. It was just meant to be like an evening long run. I didn't really fully grasp what was happening until like halfway through, and even then, but it was still fun. Experiencing it for the first time. But yeah, 9 hours. But it was just a lot of hanging out, drinking, playing D&D.
That's awesome.
The dream.
And you came back. So that was a good.
Yeah, I came
that's a good, yeah. So
What a
we've
good
got
question, Scramsky.
Yeah, thank you,
Yeah,
Scramsky.
thanks, Gramsky.
Yep, thank you.
I did want to mention too, the Jane Austen RPG is called A Good Society. So if anybody was piqued by that, I just wanted
Nice.
to thank
It's so
you.
much fun.
Quick
So much fun.
shout
Thank you
out
for
to
posting that in the chat. Yeah, go ahead. Mhm.
for Ben. He ran, like you brought up, like it would be like a party. Like he did that on his last DM. Like it was this big, creepy, fun housey party where there was a lot of like just talking to people and trying to understand what's going on and trying to learn like who is the bad guy and understand the secrets of the room and stuff like that. So I mean, I wanted to give him a shout out. I thought of that when you brought up the like how a lot of the RP was like less combat but more of just like infiltrating a party kind of thing.
Yeah,
and
well,
the politics.
I think I had talked to you one-on-one because I was like, I think 4 sessions had gone by where you guys hadn't like done any combat, and I was like, are you guys having fun? Like,
Yeah.
I know you haven't fought anything since the plants, but like, and you're like,
No,
no,
every
I'm having a
Thursday morning,
blast.
it's like another great
It's great.
session. Loved every
Yeah.
minute of it.
Yeah.
Had a ball.
Yeah.
So
But I think
cool.
we all have those types of feelings sometimes. At least I won't put it on you guys as DMs. So I know I spoke to you about it, Sam, and I think Andrew, we've discussed it too. Of like as DMs, you don't get that visceral feedback typically,
Yes.
right? And so it's like you're always like, oh man, I hope they had fun tonight.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I hope it was enjoyable for them. And like it's that weird feeling I think I always like am left with. And I'm just so grateful to have a group that is visceral with their feedback of how
Yeah.
much fun they have and like
Yeah.
want to talk about it, want to text about it. It just really, really helps like the DM blues that you often get
Yes.
after you do a session.
I hope they're
Yeah.
laughing with my dinosaur noises, not
Yeah.
at my dinosaur noises.
Yeah.
100% with. Yeah.
I forget when it happened, but I'm glad that pattern that really has set in because I 100% agree with you, Ben. Like I need that feedback at this
Yeah,
point. It's like, am I off base here? Like I need to know if we're heading in the right direction.
Well, I think that's
Well,
Andrew. I think that's why you and I, whenever we like do a party, we like gravitate to one. I'm like, hey, so what do you think about the campaign so far?
Can I just say, as I've never DM'd, I had no idea it was such a cathartic experience for the DMs to
yes.
see this feedback. I just thought we were
Yeah.
shooting the shit and just chatting about.
Oh, no, we breathe anxiety.
So needed.
No, absolutely. Just getting rid of a ball of anxiety when I get a text from you guys that's like great session or
Yeah.
whatever. Like it's because you put in all this work. You want the people to enjoy the work. I mean, you're putting on a performance and then your friends do something you didn't expect, like cast a zone of truth, and you're like, great, this orc doesn't get to lie once, and I have to figure out how to deal with that for the rest of this conversation. Like it just and you hope they still get to enjoy it because you're thinking on your feet. You got 4 people messing with whatever you
and
tried
it's
planning.
tiring too. It's exhausting. 'Cause
yeah.
You're not only thinking about the story and curating it, but you're also, at least for like me, like I'm playing characters too, and those characters
Yeah.
have emotions. And like there's one scene where I'm playing 3 characters that are having a conversation between themselves, and
Yes.
each one is at a different emotional place. And I didn't realize until after. I was like, wow, why am I so physically and emotionally drained? And I was like, oh, that's right, I DM'd, and like I'm exhausted because I was dealing with emotional topics. Like
There was a possibility where we would play twice this week, and Andrew was like, "I'm sorry, guys. Like, I don't know if I'm ready to do another one on Saturday." And I don't think Christian or Jason had a moment where they were like mad at him, but I know at least for Ben and I, we were probably like, "Yeah, no, I totally get that," and it's like, "Yeah, no, f that. If you're not
It's
ready,
a
you're
lot.
not ready. Like, it's a
Yeah.
lot."
Well,
Yeah. I was going to say, like, it takes a lot of preparation, especially when you're not just prepping a session, but also writing the content for it, because it can be two different things.
Yeah.
And it especially when you want to make games like incorporate the player actions, I think, as much as you can, so that they have rippling effects and like affect the real world and have like through lines. Like that's what some of the better games that I've been a part of have been able to do, and what I strive for. Like it does take that much time, and I spend at least a couple of nights, preparing for each Wednesday when I'm the DM.
Yeah, man. Yeah, the through lines are the best part too, man.
Yeah.
Like that's where half of the fun that I done gets like when I'm DMing of like I'll introduce them to a really nice, fun lobster man named Buldo, who they form this deep, profound relationship with. And then when they show up to this big, fancy, rich party, one of the first things they see on a dining room table is a giant lobster that's
Oh my
cooked and
God.
being eaten by a group of people. And now they have like, oh my God, is that our friend Buldo? And like they have that emotional, visceral response, like this ripple effect of this creature we thought we saved, but maybe we actually endangered. And is this him? Is this not him? And like, I love those types of through lines and story arcs.
Oh man, there's so much I want to talk to you about. We only have 3 minutes left. This is so hard.
No,
I get it.
We also have, yeah. I also too. HMLER, thank you for sharing the RPG Jane Austen, but also she's Shannon and Hope, who are
The best.
yeah.
Yeah, it's the best.
So we only have a couple moments, and I'm also curious if there's anything else that anybody was like, I really wanted to say this, but I didn't get to. So keeping that in mind, this is a very detailed question. I think I'm just going to give each of you a chance. We'll just go. Hope for us. Let us know. Oh wait, hang on a second. We got. Oh, great. Thank you. Hope for us just said that if we wanted to go a little over, we can. So I think what I'm going to do to respect people's time and also to but to answer this awesome question and give you a chance to just be like, this is where I'm at right now. I'm going to read this question, and if I'm going to go through each of you, and if you want to answer this question or if you want to share something else, that'd be great. If you need to hop off, I get that too. So just right now, I just want to say thank you, because I think you're all such inspiring, awesome people that really bring a lot of life to other people just by living your lives and loving what you love and finding your people. So thank you for being here tonight. But I'm going to read the question out loud real quick so you can think about if you want to answer it or not. But and thank you, HMLER, for the awesome question. Thank you to everybody for your comments, by the way. We didn't get to say all of them, and it's really appreciated. Thank you for being in the chat and being live with us. Shannon and Hope want to know, what's the scariest moment you've had in a game? What's the best NPC or non-player character interaction you've had in a game? And what's a moment where you faltered between knowing what was the game and what was real life? I think that's very cool. Yeah, we thought about it a lot. That's a great. It's such a good question.
Wow.
Thank you.
It's a hard question.
It's
Yeah,
it's
especially.
many layered. I think you could also pick a piece of it too.
Yeah,
if
that's
like one
just
of
it.
them
Maybe we
sticks out
each
to
kind
you.
of pick a piece or something.
Yeah. So whoever wants to go first, if the spirit moves you. Thanks again, Network, for being cool, going a little over. Thank you all for being into that. If you need to hop off again, that's totally cool.
I could go rapid fire quick first. The scariest moment,
please.
I'm just going to stick to our campaign that we've had, was Sam's T-Rex. Like, when he was doing that with Marvel, like, the whole group of us, like, fell silent, and we were just, like, waiting on, like, every breath, like, what's going to happen next. It was really cool.
Yeah.
The best NPC interaction I've had in the game was in our latest one when Andrew was DMing, and Vane had made a decision, and there was an interaction between the Blackstaff lady Vajra Shafar and Vane that was really intense and really cool. It was definitely the best interaction I had in the game. And that same decision that Vane made led to a moment where I faltered between knowing what was the game and what was real life, because it had affected one of the other players in the game, specifically Sam, and something that he had done in the game, and I had a lot of anxiety about it, and it was stressing me out a lot. So I was like reaching out to Sam and Andrew, and I think Ben a little bit, like just trying to figure out like, hey, I know this like happened in the game, and I was like, this is kind of like what the character did, but now I'm like super worried that like Sam's gonna be upset about it, and like, yeah.
Was everybody cool with it, or was there stuff that was going on, or?
I think it was a great learning moment for a lot of us where we talked, which is the
Yeah.
biggest thing.
Yeah.
Anytime you see talk, these are your players, these are your friends, hopefully, and like we talked, and I think we're absolutely closer through it.
Yeah.
And we learned a lot, and it was, I would say, I don't regret the experience for sure. If I go back, I wouldn't want it to be changed. I think the way it went was amazing because we talked and we progressed through it together.
That's
And
what I.
we
Go
talked
ahead.
from both a player perspective, like a metagame, like us as like Andrew and Jason and Sam, etc., and as the characters, which was like really, really cool. Yeah.
Oh, I was like, yes, Jason. As soon as you said that, I reached out to them, and I was like, how many people don't do that and just like live with the stress of it? That's very cool that you all were able to check in with each other. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing.
It comes with playing with like being with that supportive group of people that you play with, and like being comfortable and able to reach out like that.
That's so cool. Yeah.
I can go next. So I think the scariest moment I've ever had was in a game that Ben and I were playing with Brian, where I was playing this like half genie sorcerer, and he had very many mommy issues, like huge mommy issues. And one of our friends, Lane, actually ended up like playing as my character's mom. And he was very intimidated by her. She was like a pirate queen, and he was a pirate. And she ended up cutting off his tongue in game. And I was very scared about like what that like the repercussions may be. Like I was very nervous about that. It ended up getting quickly resolved, but for in that moment, it was one of the scariest interactions I've ever had in game, and let alone with like just another player. The power dynamic was really fun and interesting to play with, especially with a character who's typically used to being kind of in charge, to being put in that kind of that position.
Cool.
Best NPC interaction, I'm actually going to shout out to Shannon, because very early on in the other group, she has a very Fey wild, driven campaign, and very early on, our characters got to be introduced to some fairy queens early on, and my character over there is kind of power hungry and was also kind of very curious, and interacting with this kind of this winter queen in that realm was amazing. She painted this like picture of like these like goblins and like feasts, and like how they kind of subjugate the mortals that they come into, and it was just so much fun for a character that was so weak to, I guess, to be able to interact with somebody that was like both so foreign and then also so powerful, and that can be gifted. Yes, they appreciate the pandering. I guess I'm making up for whatever slight that they think I may have sent their way earlier in the conversation. Yeah, so it was awesome. And then knowing between what was game in real life, I think in that campaign that I mentioned first with Ben and me and with the pirates, his character like faked his death, and my character like may have ruined that moment, and I thought, and we were best friends in that game. I was very concerned that he was actually dead, and we didn't know. And there was actually a really cool physical reveal, like when we play the next time, where he walked down the hallway, and I think I literally cried, or was like really happy to see you.
Yeah, that was going to be my falter too. I was kind of shared with you because it was some of the most fun I've ever had. Like working with the DM on the backside to like almost like mess with you a little bit, being like, I knew that this would be a very powerful emotional moment, and like would maybe lend to the story very well and decisions that you were making. And it was so much fun. So much fun.
Very cool.
I guess I'll go next too, since I'm kind of tagging onto that, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Scariest moment I ever had in D&D. Honestly, I think the scariest moments I ever had was in the Curse of Strahd campaign that we were playing. Andrew ran when Shannon was in it. It was the best. Honestly, the whole campaign is terrifying, but
Yeah.
there was specifically we were fighting this giant tree, and one of our characters died, and I thought it was going to be a TPK, which is a total party kill. It's like everybody dies in combat, and it was the first time where like, and I love DMs like that who don't hold back in a sense, right? Of like, this is the situation, this is the world, you guys have gotten yourself into it, didn't plan properly, you're not really like working properly as a team, etc., etc. And I was just really scared because I loved my character, I love all the characters in that group, and I was like, oh, this is it, this is how it all ends, right? And it was it was terrifying. The whole campaign was so scary.
Well, like when you die in D&D, you die, right? Like your character, you don't get to have
Character's
the
gone.
character again.
Yeah,
die in
unless
real
some-
life.
you die in real life. That's
You
why
die
it's so
in real
scary.
life.
Yeah, no, you effectively, yes, your character dies and you will rip up your character sheet, but there are ways to resurrect your characters. You know, if there's a cleric nearby, or a paladin or anybody like that who has healing magic and can resurrect you, there are also spells that allow you to be dead for several days and be resurrected like that too. You can save people's bodies, and which is what I think our cleric did. She used gentle repose, which allowed them to basically be dead for like a week,
Which
and then
is
we
Shannon's
found a way.
character.
Yeah, it was
really-
so
really
great.
good-
It was
good move
such
by
a
her.
great move. Yeah. And the best NPC interaction I ever had was probably in that campaign that Brian ran, the desert one that Andrew was talking about, where at the very end my character kind of had this pivotal moment where I was talking to what would be the big bad, like the big evil villain of the game, but he was a very gray character. He thought he was morally right and the world was kind of wrong, and he was going to do something to kind of fix it all, basically hit the big reset button, right? And kind of like turn time back and let mistakes unfold again accordingly, but maybe with subtle changes. And my character had an opportunity to potentially kill him, but also like to learn from him and talk to him, and it was just a really deep, profound, like like, you know, one of those like big meta conversations that I'm having with this god of a deity thing.
Yeah.
And like, and yeah, it was really, really beautiful, and my character made a very big, bold choice to basically forsake everybody else, forsake the friendship I had with Andrew, forsake everything to be this god's key to reset time. Yeah, I don't know if I would have gotten there without that interaction.
Crazy stories we run into.
Yeah, dude, yeah.
Reset time.
Reset time.
Reset time.
Oh, come on.
No big deal. Sam or Christian, do either of you want to go?
I go next if you want, Sam.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah.
Scariest moment. My character died. So at first
Oof.
my mind went there.
Yeah.
He died just being an idiot, jumping into a situation. So that was a little scary.
Just making whoosh.
Yeah, he used the wish maker.
Yeah, he impersonated a god.
Dude, I was
to
scared
fill in
during
the
that
gaps.
moment.
I
But
honestly
Jasper
though,
resurrected him, and everything was fine.
yeah. I mean, that was scary, but I think the Boldo feast thing really kind of.
Dude, that messed with you.
It did.
The character is a naturalist at heart, loves animals, and he really bonded with Boldo. I think more so than the others. In the
Oh,
group.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And so, the prospect of his friend being not only eaten but ravenously attacked by these partygoers, it didn't settle well. So I was really scared. Like, how would Pond react? Probably start hitting things, which would not go well
Chris and I were texting
for the rest of the group, because that would cause a TPK, and you don't want to. Where do you draw that line? So I guess that kind of feeds into the second one of, what do I want to do versus like what would the character do, and so I guess for me maybe the difference in faltering between reality and life is just trying to create that mental divide of what would Pond do versus what do I maybe want to do in my gut. And then best NPC interaction. I haven't played a ton of D&D, only for I don't know, past year or two maybe. Ben, it's got to be the deaf or the mute
that was cool.
cutthroat. We were on rafts, and
Oh
Yes.
I take
yeah.
it's
That was good.
It's nice when you can like pause, the world and like think about things. But we were on rafts that were floating apart, and so we couldn't actually take a lot of time to consider these options. And we had this guy who could only communicate through hand signals, so that he could never spill a secret, type of deal. Yeah, and he was just really intimidating. And we were trying to be nice, and he's like, we were trying to save someone, and he's like, if you bring him on the raft, it's not going to end well for him. Like no witnesses, essentially. And yeah, it was just a very interesting dynamic of how we kind of chose to navigate that situation.
You guys handled it beautifully.
Dude, oh man, that was a good call, Chris.
Sam, did you?
Yeah. So I want to first give a shout out to the Vajra Safar for the NPC interaction. That was a really good one. But honestly, I think my scariest and NPC interaction are in the same moment. So at the end of Ben's party that we were talking about, we were rescuing someone that had been kidnapped, and I turned her invisible, and we're like, we're just gonna walk out of this party. We're gonna be cool, and we ran into the guy. And I was under a spell where I couldn't break rules.
Yeah.
And he looks at, and one of the rules was don't steal anything from it. And he looks at me and he goes, "Are you stealing something from me?" And meanwhile, this woman is right behind me, invisible. And Diamendi's like, "You can't own someone." Like in his head, and he goes, and this was all in my head, and I go, "No, I'm not." And Ben goes, "Make a wisdom saving throw." And I nailed it. And he's like, "You're right. You're not stealing something." I'm like, "That's right, Othune. You suck it, nerd." And then, like, just that whole interaction was so intense with the culmination of this party coming together to this moment, and it was tense, and it was a really good NPC interaction. The moment where I faltered on that aforementioned birthday campaign. I was DMing, and we came into this. My friends found this underground oasis in a desert. They just had some water for them, and I threw away this ghost that I decided to just send at them, and it was a ghost of a little girl, and she I kind of came up with a little story in the moment, and like my friends or the players weren't sure how to handle it, and then the one bard realized the girl came from the town he was from in the desert and was like, "Guys, I'll handle this." And they had this really tense bonding moment where this little girl is a ghost because she can't find her mom because her mom left her there. I'm getting choked up talking about it. And then her mom never came back. So that's her unfinished business. And so this little girl is a scared ghost and afraid. And she looks at the player and goes, "I miss my mommy." And he goes, "I miss mine too." And and I was like, "And we'll take a quick break." Just in that moment there, that was definitely a moment where just it all got real.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Sam.
Yeah. That was great.
No, I'm glad I got to.
Thank you all. Yeah, such a good question. I wish I could talk to you all for another 14 hours, and we could. And I also just want to note too that Buldo messed me up because Ben told me that he was going to make you think that you were eating your lobster friend. That really upset me too. I was like, from outside,
you can't do that.
So thank you for mentioning that. But thank you all for your vulnerability and just being awesome human beings. I feel really lucky to have been able to talk to you. Thanks everybody in the chat for being awesome, and for Scrampsy just had goosebumps. Thanks everybody for being just holding this space and sharing it. I always like to end with just a quick little breath. You can I like to open up real big like a star. You can do that if you want or not, or you can close your camera. It's totally
I'm worried
up to
about
you.
pitters. I'll just go with this.
I got him too, Sam.
Yeah,
so
all
just-
right.
I got him.
We all got
I
him.
do too. You just can't. I'm wearing black. But
Yeah,
I do too.
rotates. It's not as apparent.
But we can but just being big for me, and then taking a couple big slow breaths, so into the chest, the ribs, the belly, maybe an open mouth. And if that felt good, just doing it 2 more times. You can be slower or faster than me. Last one. I'm just taking a minute to be big when so often we're asked to be little, and just to feel alive and good as we've all shared this thing. Thanks everybody for being here.
Thank
with me
you, Kate.
tonight.
This was
Thank you,
amazing.
Kate.
Thank you.
This was a
Thanks,
wonderful
Weaver.
experience.
I feel
Thanks for
really
inviting
lucky.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hope for Us Network.
Thank
This
you,
was
Hope
awesome.
for
Thank
Us.
you,
Yes.
Hope for Us Network.
Yes.
Shout out to Mark
Love it.
McFly.
Yeah.
I see you down there.
Yeah.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Hit that
Yeah,
notification bell.
like
Yeah.
and subscribe. Like and
Yeah.
subscribe.
Hands up.
Thanks everybody. You can close out the chat network. Bye.
Yay.
Bye.
Bye.